On the next Raw Travel, we head to the eco-tourism hotspot of Ecuador. My adrenaline gets pumping when I bike up a volcano, climb down a waterfall, jump off a bridge, and then
surfs up in Montanita.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carlos Phoenix in the Indie Lounge, and we have a special show yet again. We're going to do this as weekly as possible, where we're going to cover information about the latest episodes of Raw Travel from the website rawtravel.tv with Robert Rose. And so here is my guest, Robert Rose, and hello there, Robert.
Carlos, ¿qué pasó? How you doing, man? Good.
So yeah, I just watched this episode, and outside of the beauty of Ecuador, because it's just every last episode you had the mountain, and you were able to see a city from the top of a mountain, and it just continues now with volcanoes. So anything you wanted to kind of bring out on this particular episode?
Well, I mean, it was not my first time in Ecuador. I've been to Ecuador a few times, not many times, and my first time sort of busing in one big trip. So basically what we did is we started off in Quito, which is what you saw in episode 1. And then we went to some day trips for Quito. And then this time we started busing to the coast, Guayaquil, the other big city, and the beach town of Montanita. So what you're seeing at episode 102 is the continuation of our journey. And the town that really surprised me the most, I'd heard good things about it, and I really, really like it. I'd like to go back again someday, was Baños. It's just, it's a cool little town, man. It's, it's like a beach town, but it's in the mountains, and there's a lot of stuff to do, and, travel infrastructure, but culture. It's got a good mix of people. I like it.
Now, Baños, I thought was beautiful. And now that's it's funny how it's named after a bathroom. In case you don't know Spanish, it's
right.
The bathroom. But I was watching that with my wife, and we were watching the episode, and it totally seems like one of those go-to towns that you just want to stay at and live in almost. The food, the restaurants, the beaches, and then of course you mentioned the surfing on the episode. Now there was a couple cities you had gone to, I think, before Baños, right?
Well, Baños actually was the first city, so
okay.
It was the city with the waterfalls, and the reason it has that name, Baños, if you remember the thermals, the thermal spas where I jumped into the water. And I'm really white and pale, and everybody's sort of brown skinned, indigenous, and I'm like the only white dude in there. And I stood out like those are thermals, and those are just naturally occurring, and that's what the town is named after. It's warmed by the volcanoes. So there's an active volcano really nearby Baños, and that was sort of what makes you a little bit nervous when you're there. You're like, what's the evacuation plan? Because that thing could blow at any time, and you're like, so that's where the joke of the episode was I wanted to take my mind off the active volcano, so we went to the thermals, and then I was like, they're heated by what makes these warm? And they're like, oh, the active volcano, and I'm like, oh, I'm back to that again, So that was the idea. Right next to it are waterfalls that come from the volcano over the volcano,
and they're hot.
Those are cold. The waterfalls are
interesting, really.
Yeah, so you can go get in the hot water, and then you try to get under the cold water, and it was, I'm not much of, I don't even like a cold shower, man, so I'd like stick my toe in, but the warm water was awesome. I loved it, but the coldness, not for me, man.
Now the warmth, warm to the point of hot. Is it steamy in that one?
Yeah, it's pretty steamy. It's like taking a warm bath, and they have them all over the place. The one that we went to was the main one in the middle of town.
Okay.
Very popular. You can see it was really crowded. But that's the cool thing, man. Did you notice they're mostly locals? Tourists are welcome, travelers are welcome, but there's indigenous people there, been going there for years. So you're not, those weren't built for tourists. They're naturally recurring, and indigenous people have been going there for centuries. So that's what I think is cool. You're just taking part of what they do on a daily, on a basis of they visit as well. You're like an Ecuadorian.
Now, is that one, let's say, going uphill like on top of a mountain, or is that almost on a ground level next to a volcano?
Well, it's at the bottom of a volcano, and the actual thermal is. And then, we were biking There are waterfalls. It has a beautiful. There's a bike tour, and I'm not a huge biker, especially in Latin America. Because you're worried about getting hit by a truck. But they have a bike trail. It's not an actual trail, but it is a trail, and it's basically you're on the highway some, but it's not that dangerous because there's not a lot of traffic on it. And then there are times it's only a bike path. It's really beautiful, man, and you're overlooking these incredible valleys below. And so we took a little cable car from one side of the mountain to the other, and that cable car is not for tourists either. That's for the locals who live there to get from one side to the other. But as a traveler, you can do it if you just want to go to the other side and be in the cable car, and it's really cool.
Do they charge a fee for that?
Yeah, but it's so cheap, It's really, really cheap, and it's pretty safe so long as you don't get near the edge and fall off, and do something stupid, But nobody's gonna make you sign a disclaimer. It's not like a ride at the fair, And then we were biking, and I went to a bridge, and I bungee jumped. And that what reminds me of that is the disclaimer. And that's when it did hit me that I had never bungee jumped before. I'll be honest with you, I never really wanted to. It's not my thing.
Right.
But I was like, for the show, I'm going to do it. Whatever. I'm old enough, I should bungee jump. And I was like, it's no big deal. How many times have you seen people bungee jump on TV? But when those things are around, when they're outfitting you and you're like, it seemed very unofficial. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's not something you really want to be unofficial about. So we just drove up to the bridge, and I'm like, I wonder if this guy just brought his bungee cord today and just set up shop, No release
that's what it
forms.
looked like on the episode. It looked like you just kind of walk up to the guy that theoretically has a business and you jumped.
Right. That was it. That was it. That was it. And it hit me, because we were like,
were there
it's
other
not like we
people
did
there
our
for that?
research. Huh?
Were there other people there for that?
Yeah, there were other people there for that. I didn't see
Okay.
anybody else jump, but they were. I'm sure they. I mean, I was a guinea pig. We just rolled up and I jumped, and there were other people waiting to jump.
Now, in that portion of the episode, when you say you rolled up, did you drive up or do you just bike ride?
That was part of the biking tour.
Jeez.
Most of what we did, we biked to. So all of this, even when I was canyoning down the waterfall, which is pretty harder than it looks, by the way, because you're rappelling. But because you're rappelling down a waterfall, it's slick, and you have these special shoes and a wetsuit they give you. But the guy, my instructor, man, he's like 12, 13, 14. I don't know. He looked really young. So I was like, dude, how old are you? I mean, he did a good job. I made it down safely, but that's dangerous too, man. It's not, and the whole time I'm like, this is not really my thing. It's not really comfortable, but I'm glad I did it. And I have become more adventurous after that trip. I've bungee jumped since. I've done more adventurous things after that. And I know why people are into it. You sort of get that adrenaline flowing, and it's an addiction,
Right. There's a point in time that I was watching, and it's when you start talking about, well, there's different ways of traveling around, and there's the buggies, and that looked kind of cool. You chose biking.
Yeah.
Now, okay, in a full production, usually I imagine the camera guys go in some kind of car or whatever and stuff. But here in your situation, you're literally just with these camera guys and saying, okay, we're going to do it bike-wise.
Yeah.
Were there did they fight you on it? Did they say, you know what, dude, riding a bike and I'm going to hold the camera? Was there a concern there?
No, I mean, we were three guys. It was a decision we all made. Part of it is because Banos, we wanted to focus on ecotourism.
Right.
And, a buggy is not the most, I mean, it's not, like flying a private plane, but it does use gas. So, if you really want to get into nature, you're biking. And the way that we do it now, unfortunately at the time, we didn't have our GoPro when this was filmed. In later episodes, the GoPro, that would have been really good because you could have seen a little POV shots. But we did have a flip cam and other stuff. It was just, the bike tour is the thing to do in Banos. You really should do it if you're a somewhat active person because the scenery is good. Like I said, I'm not, I biked a little bit when I lived in California. I'm not a huge biker. I don't just bike for miles and, scout trails on Google Maps and stuff. But this bike tour was fairly easy, good exercise, which we needed. And we could just throw the camera on our back in our camera bag. And, we took turns carrying the camera. And,
Right.
You bike and you get off. You're not on the bike the entire time. So you're biking, getting off at different stops.
Got it.
Yeah.
So there was a point in time when you started going and where you thought you were going to just go downhill.
Right.
And then you guys ended up, at least in the episode, walking your bikes. What happened there?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically they told us, oh, the bike trail is really easy. It's mostly downhill, and, obviously something can't be downhill there and back. But they were like, it's really downhill, and, you take a circle, and it's an easy thing. And really, immediately, we were like, we couldn't even bike. We were up such a steep hill, and we were like, this doesn't make sense. And it kept going. We kept thinking we were going to hit the top, and then it would, because they mentioned it being so easy. And eventually this guy in a truck stopped, a local, and he was like, where are you trying to go? He knew that we were lost, and we were like, we're on the bike tour. And he's like, no, what you're doing is this hill, it doesn't stop. It's a volcano. It's going to keep going for miles. And so he just saved us a bunch of trouble, and we turned around, and we were lost, and typical gringos, I'm sure he's like, these turistas. But, directions in Latin America, not always the clearest things. Sometimes they're
so no GPS, I guess.
Yeah, no GPS, man. No GPS.
Was there at least Street View and Google Maps? Anything?
There was none of that, man, back then. I mean, this was way back in 2011 when we taped this, so, that's why I look younger, guys, back then. Yeah, now Banos was great, man, and we stayed at an eco. These were a couple of expats from Australia and New Zealand, a couple with their son, and they have this little bed and breakfast, and it's eco-friendly. So what I was curious, especially at that time, what does that mean? What it meant, it wasn't pretty, but it was nice. Because it wasn't pretty because it wasn't all painted and finished and stuff.
Right.
But it was built with trees from a tree forest, where trees grow to full size in 10 years. So you cut them down and replant some more. Instead of going into the rainforest and grabbing the wood.
That's very cool.
Instead of getting 200-year-old trees, they get tree forests that are made for this specific. So you grow trees like you grow plants, and every 10 years you can harvest them.
So that was lots of plants and stuff and food and that type of thing.
Yeah, they had their own organic garden out back. They took, if you saw in the house, it was really beautiful. A lot of the windows and the tile work had recycled bottles. They had places where the traveler could recycle. And it's even really, it's the little things that make something eco-friendly. Like instead of trying to sell you bottled water for $2 a pop, they have free water already purified, and you can get it for free instead of just. And honestly, man, I had a plastic bottle with me, and I was trying to sneak it out of the house without them seeing it because I felt like they were going to yell at me, like, "Oh, that's not eco-friendly." But they were really cool, They were like, "No, it's not. It's a process." And at that time, let's say being eco-friendly is here, being just a complete pig is here. I was somewhere maybe in the middle, and now I'm over here. But at that time, I was in the middle and a little intimidated by these eco-friendly hippies, they were really cool. And that's the way we need to get our message across, man. You start yelling at people and preaching at them, they ain't going to respond. It's stupid. It's just a bunch of fringe people on the fringe. You have to reason with people. And once you get into it like I am now, I can't stand not to recycle. It drives me crazy when somebody gives me a plastic bag, And anyway, man, that's my story about
that's cool. And now, and how is it living in New York right now and having to feel those things?
Well, New York doesn't recycle. Like I lived in Santa Monica in between Ecuador and here. And in Santa Monica, they had outlawed plastic bags. So I got really used to not using plastic bags and seeing them. And after visiting Latin America, I remember a couple of times, I think it was in Peru or somewhere, there was this entire scrub forest near the ocean that was just full of plastic bags in the limbs of trees for miles and miles and miles. Something with the wind currents had brought all these plastic bags there. And in the next episode that people are going to see, one of the next couple, where we're helping to save the sea turtles in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the reasons that the sea turtles are endangered, one of the many reasons, is because they'll, mistake a plastic bag floating in the ocean as a fish. They'll eat it, and then, of course, it'll mess up the digestive system. They die a very painful death. And so I just really hate plastic bags. I mean, they can be recycled, but I think only 15% of them ever are. And in Latin America, it's probably 0.5%. So, and it seems like a competition sometimes at the stores. They put a plastic bag inside of one, and we just need to stop it, man. I don't know if they have a powerful lobby or whatever, but it's wasted. There's no reason we can't use, paper bags. And, they have their issues as well, but we just have to be more intelligent about what we do. And I think Banos was the first time that ecotourism began to click in my head a little bit. Ecuador began to click, and the next city that we went to, Cuenca, ironically enough, had a little ecotourism, fair going on to educate people about it. And they're actually one of the more progressive cities in Latin America for recycling and whatnot. And perhaps coincidentally or not coincidentally, they're leading, the charge for expatriates, people from the United States moving down there for retirement and things like that in Cuenca. So, Ecuador has some problems. There's no doubt. A lot of poverty, a lot of pollution. Always anywhere you see poverty, pollution. But in Cuenca, it's a pretty clean city, man. I like Cuenca. And that's where we did the Panama hat segment, if you can remember that.
Right. That was extremely impressive to me. The hand making the fact that they're handmade at home, and then they bring it in and finalize it, and yet it looks like a very high end product. You can't imagine that here in the U.S. I can't imagine that here in the U.S. and making it profitable. Now there was one that you picked up in the glass case.
Right.
It looks like that was supposed to be like some kind of museum piece.
Right.
That was very ultra thin. Oh, you mentioned a price on it, but I didn't know if it was in their monetary or
no. It was U.S. dollars, $1,500 U.S. dollars.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean that's a expensive hat, if you think about it, and it's the floppier the hat, the thinner the hat, the more expensive because that's
harder to
the
make.
more weaving, the more time they had to put into weaving it, and the finer the tequila plant, which is what they use.
Now tequila is not the same as tequila.
No,
okay.
no. I hope I got my plants right, but I think it's called tequila plant. Yeah, no, not the same as tequila. I know that. Yeah.
Wow. Now, let's step away from the episode for a second. There's a lot of production stuff that you do, and they have to put together. Any issues on that end with this episode?
No, I can't think of, because in this batch, this was our last episode of that particular, this was our first batch, but it was the last episode, and I think we sort of had it down. This particular, we got 2 episodes in 8 days, which is probably a record for us. We did Quito in about 3 days, and then we did the rest of Ecuador maybe in about 5 days. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why we were so efficient, because we were busing through Ecuador. And usually when you bus, it gets, but when you're staying within a country, you can stay on schedule. Because from town to town, it's when you go from country to country that you got to go through immigration, and in Central America, when we did it most recently, it just played hell with our schedule. But in this particular case, we were on schedule, we were on point, and remember, we were thinking, 1 hour episode, not 2 half-hour episodes. So we were just thinking, get one done in 8 days. Compare that to Colombia, which was our first one, where we spent 22 days shooting, which is an odyssey and not sustainable.
And how many episodes were you able to break that into?
2, only 2.
Really?
Yeah, because we went to the Amazon, and it was our first episode, so we were overshooting.
So you're still figuring out what you want to show, that type of stuff.
Right. How much should we be shooting? Now we have a little point of comparison. It's still an inexact science. I was hoping we could crank out a little better than we did in Central America, but I think we're going to get better and better. I just, you do the math, man. We have to do 22 episodes for broadcast TV, and a couple of them can be repackaged or whatnot, or the best ofs, they call them. But, even if we just do 20 originals, you do the math and you're like, I'm always shooting or editing. When am I going to do anything else? Just live,
Right.
So, and the shooting or editing, shooting means you're on the road. Editing means you're stuck inside of a, edit bay all the time. So, we're still figuring it out, but, I like figuring things like that out where there's no map, you're just figuring things out for yourself and figuring out a better way to make it happen.
Now, for the viewers who have watched the episodes, at least 1 and 2, I want to give them a reminder, because I don't know if we really went into this in the last episode. This is a completely independent production that's being done.
Yes.
And yet it still looks a la Anthony Bourdain or some of these other travel shows that are on television. You shouldn't be able to differentiate the quality because it looks that good.
Right.
So I'm hoping it serves as inspiration for any of you that are out there who want to get into production stuff, that you can do top quality product, and Robert's doing it, probably using every hour and every moment of his time to get something like this into television, from the production stance, the editing stance, and all the work that it goes from shooting, pre-production shooting, and then getting it on actual broadcast television. It is a feat, which is insane. I don't even want to imagine how much work it takes to do so. And so again, as I did in the last episode, I totally bow to you and respect that, and the fact that you're capable of doing that. And I just want to make sure that the audience, because somebody flips on the television, they think, oh, they all have top dollar, they all have all this. And I just want to make sure that people who are watching, who want to catch some of this behind the scenes talk, understand what's really being in front of their eyes. This is completely, it's raw, not just in the travel, but raw in the whole production process. It's not Hollywood. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's funny, man. In the intro, I don't know if you noticed that the frame jumps a little bit in the intro. It's got a little look to it.
Uh-huh.
And I've had a couple people be like, oh, it's a little messed up. And I think they think because we're independent that, we don't have our act together. I'm like, that's an effect that we did on purpose. We're trying to make it look a little bit like Super 8, a little unstable. Okay. And because we're a small production, they think I just want to let you know the intro was a little messed up. And I'm like, no, that's on purpose. That's an effect. It's a look.
Well, that being said, my wife did catch something. My wife has eyes like eagles, and I hope you don't hurt yourself or not hurt yourself, but beat yourself up about it. And she does this to me all the time. On the lower thirds, on the like the captioning, she caught one misspelling.
Oh, on the captioning?
Yeah.
Or on the subtitles?
Subtitles, my bad. Yeah, subtitles.
When we were subtitling?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That doesn't surprise me. What's the word? Do you remember?
I don't remember. She's like...
You got to let me know, dude. You got to let me know, man.
Oh, hold on. I think
that
she's
doesn't
in the back.
Surprise me at all.
What word was it? Piece by piece?
Oh.
Yeah, the I before E thing.
Yeah, man. I caught that before. I can't understand. I don't know why it ended up not being fixed. That's weird. I totally remember that.
Sorry, I didn't want to put it out there, but
good catch. Look into it. I hope we didn't air an old version of our show. That was messed up if we did.
Oh yeah,
piece by piece.
So now,
let me write that down.
We're gonna send an update.
Fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So here we are, episode 2, and all this work, all this is somewhat paying off. There's still a lot of work to be done, and there's still a lot of episodes to kind of finalize. How's it feel?
I wish it felt better. I'm just really tired, dude. We're working so hard. I mean, I have some highs, but mostly right now I'm stressed out about a couple of issues, and not to feel sorry for myself. I don't. It's hard, man, and it's going really well. I'm just a little angry that there's a couple of issues that are keeping me from enjoying it, because the thing, and I walked into this production eyes wide open because I've done this before, and I knew how difficult it was going to be, so I'd already prepared myself to enjoy the ride this time. And, so all the things that you're talking about, I was prepared for. I'm like, hey, man, it's going to be hard, going to be blah, 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 blah. Just don't let it get to you. And then, as always, there's something that you don't expect, and that's it. So it's sort of crazy. So there were things that... that you have to, you're always learning, you're always being challenged, man. And, but I can't wait for the new episodes to come out, because we're sitting here watching these shows that we did months ago, it's over a year ago.
Now, was the editing and all that stuff done back then? Oh, really?
Yeah, a long, long time ago. So when you're telling me this piece by piece stuff, I'm like, damn, I remember catching that.
Oh, wow.
And I could have sworn we fixed it, and it makes me wonder what happened. So, and I also noticed a mistake. We didn't Chiron me when I came on camera. So if someone's never seen the show before, they don't know who I am. Who's this guy? You know what I'm saying? So those are mistakes that you catch after the fact. And as I told you before we got, I thought, to me, episode 102 is choppy compared to 101.
Right.
And I know why, because we had a longer international version and we had to cut it down to a syndicated version. And things get cut. And if you cut the wrong thing, sometimes your storytelling suffers.
It gets out of context. I understand.
It totally gets out of context. So now I'm actually tonight, after we're done, I've got a Mexico City episode that's beautiful. And I've got to figure out what to cut for the U.S. So you guys in the U.S., you don't get to see the whole thing. Sometimes that's a good thing because it's a tighter production.
Right.
Sometimes you're missing something really good. What I'm hoping to do, though, is that stuff that's really good, we'll repackage it, put it on the internet, behind the scenes, or put it in a future episode, things you haven't seen before. So, don't get too disfranchised about that. But there are some things that I really want to show that I can't because I only have 20 and a half minutes, really.
So, here we are online. We're doing an online show talking about your television show. And you're talking about, an opportunity to see the uncut type of versions with behind the scenes. And we're talking about doing that on the internet. But when we say releasing it on the internet, Blu-ray still exists.
Right.
Is there a thought behind that?
Yeah, there's a thought behind every stream of revenue that we can get to make this make sense. You just have to. You don't want the tail wagging the dog. And people are always like, "Oh, you're gonna put it on the internet," and I'm like, "Eventually, not first." Until someone shows me that I can make more money on the internet than I can on television, then why in the hell would I do that?
Right.
Just because people are like, everyone's watching the internet these days, and I'm like, no kidding, man. Tell me something I don't know, but that doesn't mean
nobody's making money doing it.
Yeah, right. I mean, some people are, but we're just going to be one of that. A cat playing the piano will always beat a travel show on the internet. And
so a lot of people don't get. There's a ton of content now, mine included, and a lot of people don't realize that this show's not right now anyway making money. We do it out of love. Now, granted, you're doing it out of love too, but you're making a business out of it, and I intend to as well. But YouTube is not a survival factor for most people that are putting videos online. You got to have hundreds of thousands, if not more, people just to make a simple buck. So when you're talking about not necessarily want it to release online is because you put a lot of energy, a lot of thought into it, and just to throw it on the internet, there's no money involved.
It waters down the value, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and people, and especially the young kids and young adults, they hate ads, and unfortunately, that's just how someone like you in particular. More so than Hollywood. Hollywood figures out a way to make money. This is the only way to survive. There's the only way that you can make the money back because you already went out of pocket. And so there's if anybody's going to complain about, now I got to buy it, it's because it's the only way you can make money. So that's just so they wanted to throw it in there because the more independent productions that are going to exist, there's got to be a new money making way of doing it.
And everybody has it depends on your production and what your costs, your recoup costs are, but there is no formula. I mean, I get really frustrated when people call me up and like, I got this great idea. How do I make money from it? And I'm like, do you think someone told me, hey, Rob, here's how you make money? I'm like, figure it out, dude. You have the internet. Figure it out. Now, I can give some advice, specifics, like if you want to say, okay, I want to syndicate the show like you did, then I want to do that. Then I'm like, okay, but you have to figure it out. Like when I did it, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew how to do it, which is weird. Like I was like an educated virgin. I knew how to have sex, but I'd never had sex before. It was basically how it was. I knew the theory of it. How did I know the theory? Well, I worked in the business, but I studied. I read. At the time, the internet wasn't really feasible to do your research. So I read the trades and I talked to people and I prepared and I worked and I got lucky as well. And that's what happens, it's any entrepreneurial story. Unfortunately, you only hear two stories. Usually you hear the story of the Googles, the guys who, or the Facebooks,
right?
The mega billionaires. You don't hear the stories of the guys like myself usually, who are modest at best successes, who, because when I look at the time that I've been independent, and I'm like, I did pretty well for a period of time that made all those other years sort of make sense. Right. But when you even all the money out over a period of time, you're like, I could have, for a lot less stress, almost have had a job for somebody, work for somebody. Wouldn't have been as fulfilling, but I would have made maybe close to the same amount of money for a lot less stress,
Yeah, totally.
And
so there's a lot of love involved in the production.
Absolutely, man. Because I love getting up every day. Yeah, man. And like you asked me if I was enjoying it, I'm like, I'm not, but I would, I've been miserable working for someone as well. It's always going to be misery. There's little glimpses of joy that is so great that it gets you through the misery that you're going to have to go through until you get that next glimpse of joy. And there's a lot of misery you got to go through before you get them, and that's just everybody. I think even big time producers will tell you that.
Yeah, there's a lot of make it quick, rich type stories, right? There's celebrities, and there's athletes and that type of stuff. And basically, the point that I'm trying to get to is, to the people looking at someone who's successful, they think, oh well, they were born that way, or they knew what to do, or they had a connection, or something to that effect.
Right.
But regardless, there was a huge amount of work involved in their success that you'll never see, because all you see is whatever got shot in front of a camera, and they're wearing their bling or their car or whatever. That's all you see. There's an enormous amount of work that it took to get to that point. And so someone might see your TV show, they'll see your face, they eventually will recognize you and be like, hey, you're that guy. And not have a clue as to the blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, that you're going through, and that all these other folks had gone through, to just be able to be in front of that camera for that award or for that prize or for whatever it is that they're promoting. So I totally understand what you're saying. And it's work. And even and anybody who works, you kind of hate it. I mean, for the longest time, I was a painter, and when I painted, I hate the process of painting. It's long, and you have to use your skill and your thoughts and all this stuff. But the prize is when people see the artwork and say, oh, wow, that came out really good. They don't know how much hair I pulled off to get it done. So here we're looking at your stuff, and if we just watch the episode, you just shrug and say, oh, that was good, not realizing how much work it really took to get it there. So I understand completely.
Absolutely, man. And, I mean, that's it. That's the process. I'm not saying that it's like that for everybody. It is for me. It's been an extreme, and I didn't look forward to it. I didn't want, relish it. But I was extremely bored. It was either do nothing or do this. And I'm like, damn, what a choice. So let's do this, because it's a hell of a lot more enjoyable than doing nothing. Because you have a finite time of productive years on this planet. And, I'm reminded of that. I see my dad, he's 85, and, he really can't do much anymore. And I'm like, that's me in 40 years. And I'm like, what can I do in the next 40 years? So I look back and I'm like, so proud of what I did, and that has nothing to do with money. Money is just somewhat of a yardstick, and it's a fake one of success that we put,
totally
ourselves in. But it's a fake one. But it can be. It's a game, and it's definitely part of it because you are in commerce. So it's part of the success thing, but it's not the only thing. And for this particular show, my thought process was do the best you can, enjoy the process of creating, and try to have as much fun as you can, which is why I'm a little disappointed right now, because I'm distracted with not being able to do that, because I was like, this might be it. 1 year, and that's it. But no one will ever be able to take away what you just did, and you'll always be able to look at that and say, look what we did, And the ironic thing about that is chances are it'll continue because I have that attitude about it. Whereas if I had an attitude that it must go and it has to go, then, maybe it won't. Things don't always work out like you plan.
Right, I understand completely. So I think we'll end off the show with that, a positive note. And so can you give us a little glimpse at what's going on in the next episode?
Yeah, episode 103. All right, so the next 2 episodes are Trinidad, and so we're going to be in Port of Spain. I can tell you that's a good one because we're eating a lot of food. It's just a interesting culture. It's Carnival. It's got a lot of different cultures there. And then the following episode will be rural Trinidad and Tobago, which Tobago to me is not that interesting because it's very touristy, but they have some interesting elements like goat racing. We're going to be saving the turtles. The Carnival in Trinidad, even though we're not there during Carnival, we talk about it. We have some great images from that.
Right.
And then we eat some roti, which is from East Indian culture, the African culture. We get sort of explore the Asian culture, all the culture, the melting pot of Trinidad, and drive on the wrong side of the road. And, so it's going to be somewhat cool, I think.
What I like is how you say, it's not that interesting, it's very touristy. Where a tourist would say, "Oh, we have to see this and all the tourist spots and stuff." Yeah. It's just funny because it's
just beautiful,
travel.
It's beautiful, but it doesn't make it interesting, you know. But Trinidad and Tobago are very interesting places, but they don't really care about tourism that much because they got a lot of oil money,
right?
So they don't really kiss your butt at all, and I sort of like that, man, because they were like, if they're friendly to you, it's because they want to be friendly, not because they're trying to make a buck off of you. And I thought that was it's a refreshing change.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, well, thank you again. I really enjoyed the episode, and I'm looking forward to the other episodes coming up. Folks, you can catch the episodes at your local channels, so check out your listings. It's happening.
Rawtravel.tv.
Rawtravel.tv will actually have a list of each city and the channels that'll be on. And, he's constantly blogging and promoting. Please share this episode, share his sharing, share the website, and let people know that this gentleman is out there traveling and bringing a lot of great content to you. So till next time, Robert, thank you so much for coming on my show. And, folks, follow me on theloungenetwork.com. There's plenty of content there. And, again, just check out your local listings. Anything you want to say, Rob?
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, man.
All right,
thanks, guys. All right, man. Bye-bye.
Take care.
See you guys. All right, bye-bye.
Here's a tip. When in Latin America, watch your step.
One more take.
Yeah, I like this one, man, because I look Mexicano. We made our way a little further south.